everyone, I'm Carla. I'm a food addict, compulsive eater, and bulimic. I weigh and measure 3 meals a day from the gray sheet. I write them down, call them in, eat them, and nothing else in between. And just for today, abstinence is the most important thing in my life without exception. And by the grace of something much greater than me, being you all and this program, my abstinence date is March 31st, 2007. And I just have to keep coming back because if I weren't doing that, I'd be out there in the food because I get to remember what it was like, how horrible it was out there. I wonder if I can share my screen. I'm going to see. I never know how this works for sure. I think I can do it. So here I am before I started Gray Sheet. I often I either weighed 325 pounds or 332 pounds. Does it really? I started saying 300 and some change, it was a lot of weight. Oh my God, it was so much weight. And, I still have body dysmorphia or something in that, not diagnosed, but in that zone because, I would be at that weight and I would look back at a weight that was like maybe 75 pounds smaller than that. And I would think I looked so good. Like if I could just get back to there, there's just no, I just met my, a fairly new sponsor at the Gray Sheet Roundup this year. And she said, I got to tell you, I was wanting to make some changes in what I was eating. She said, I was expecting you to be a lot bigger, which is not something anybody's ever said to me. She said, well, the way that you were talking, it just seemed like, you talk about yourself like you're bigger than you look. As you might guess, I have no idea what I'm going to say here. So those are just so that is with me. And but this program has given me so much. So to hop back just a bit, I family of addiction. My parents were really done. I was an oops sales trip. Oops. My mom was 35, which in the 60s was kooky that you would have a child. People were dying before that age. Okay, not quite, but. And so, they did the best they could. And there were really great things about my childhood. And, they were kind of over it. And food, however, was not over it. It was there, I didn't know where to turn. It was so reliable. My dad worked for a major food company. And so we had what were staples at other people's houses. We had the best staples ever. And so I started gaining weight when I was about 8. And I too have that story that I hear people tell, which is that now when I look back at my pictures from junior high, I look like someone who maybe started going through puberty and was kind of filling out a bit. But before that, I thought I was just ridiculous, just morbidly obese. My mom was already taking me to different doctors and whatnot. Somehow I escaped, diet pills and whatnot. They must have cost too much. But I started on diets, and I remember in 5th grade, we didn't have a cafeteria, so they had like a lunch cart. And when you were a 5th grader, which was the highest of the elementary school grades, you got to be the person who staffed the cart. And to do that, you got a hot lunch. And my mom had started sending me a half of the and a couple of the sticks of this. And that was pretty, And so when she told me I wasn't going to be able to staff the cart, I mean, it was devastating. I thought that was just going to be the most exciting thing ever. That's one of the things I haven't been able to do for myself, is see how I could staff a lunch cart in Gray Sheet. Okay, sorry. So, I just was kind of maladapted to life. And my disease progressed. I got into other, things, alcohol. I always seemed a little bit more advanced in these arenas than the folks around me. And, I was the biggest drinker, and I was the one that wanted to take the kookiest risks. And that was nothing way out of line. But, and so my parents paid for me to go on lots of the big box diets, gained and lost the same amount of weight a gazillion times, between like 60 and 80 pounds, which wasn't all I needed to lose. But when I started seeing that I had a shape, I didn't know how to, that was definitely a life situation I was not at all ready to handle. And so I would, I'd get nervous and pick up foods and eat and gain weight. When I finally did start losing weight on GreySheet, my then psychiatrist said, what are you going to do now that this fortress you've built around yourself is crumbling down? And some days I'm still not really sure of that. Anyhow, so I lived alone for about 8 years in my adult life, my young adult life. And I really got to see how my disease progressed, because it just was all about getting the food. And I had like this whole life. I held down, an administrative job, snuck food there, but I thought at least I was fooling people. I don't know, but I'll bet, and I just kept trying to do that in all the ways. I'd order the 2 drinks and talk about we will enjoy it, and da 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 da. And it just got worse, did all the things. Okay. So I had my first primary relationship, live-in relationship, when I was in my mid-30s. And I realized, oh my gosh, I got to figure out ways to get my food. I kind of those chemicals of the first 6-8 weeks, I forgot that I was going to have to, get my drug, but my drug was still going to be first. My food was still going to be first. And so it wasn't pretty, it just was not.
8 minutes. 8.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So I would, take food that was my stepdaughter's and replace it some more. And I'd get caught eating, and I'd make up ridiculous excuses. And so at some point, my then partner, who had a professional, dealt with 12-step programs a lot in her profession, she had a little mini intervention with me. I don't know what she looks back and thinks the relationship was for, but I'm pretty sure for me, that's what that was about, because it changed my life. It was so loving and kind. She called me an addict, and truly, it was as though she called me a princess, because I thought I was crazy. I had been to all kinds of therapists, wanting them to tell me, do something. And I was on antidepressants and such, and that wasn't taking the weight off of me, but I wanted something to. And so when she called me an addict, it was like, okay, I know enough about addiction to know that it's not all my fault. I'm not, this animal, with all the horrible words that I had for myself and felt like I saw society have for me. And so I was just about to turn 40. So I didn't want to go before that, because I wanted to have a big celebration with all the things. But right after that, I went to an Overeaters Anonymous meeting. And it felt really godlike, because I had a lot of social anxiety then. But I happened to know that the building that it was in, it was this old church that I used to perform in. And so I could get myself there. I mean, truly, I don't know that I would have done that, but I did. And, I walked into a 12-step meeting where all of these people just looked at me with these smiles, like, not like that smarmy, yeah, we get you, but just in this such heart open, we might have something for you kind of a thing. And at the end, they say the piece about, we hope that you will love us as much as we already love you, I think is what they say. And, I felt like I had a pretty steel, you couldn't get into me, but I felt that stuff. And I just kept coming back. And I got so much out of Overeaters Anonymous. I didn't know that when I got to GreySheet, because I was pretty upset, because it was not the end of my, compulsive eating story. But I at least got in the doors, and I found out that there was something greater than me, that I didn't have to do it alone. And I got to reconnect with a higher power. They did really fun things, like you made a God box where you put the stuff that you didn't feel like you could handle on your own, And other things like writing a want ad for a higher power. What? I thought I'd been rejected by the only religion that I understood there to be, which is kind of a weird thing to say, but that's how it was. And so I just really felt hope. And I figured out you could really binge on healthy foods too. And also have some money issues. So I did the steps with a male sponsor, which in and of itself was super duper healing for me. But I was eating the stuff we don't eat all along. No one talked about food. I don't know if I didn't ask the right questions or what, but I did say, what do people eat? And a woman said, well, no one usually eats the white stuff. I'm like, all right, okay. So I don't know for sure what that means, but I can think of a couple. So I started just lying to my sponsor and doing all the things that I had done before. And then it just kind of was a diet, but I knew I couldn't go anywhere else. And, when I wasn't at least trying, I felt that, head full of program and belly full of, icky. And that was really, really hard because I didn't know there wasn't enough food, enough whatever to help me feel like I wasn't betraying myself. So our program, Gray Sheet, was brought to Spokane, Washington, where I was, in a way that I couldn't hear it very well. What I heard was that you committed your food for a month and you couldn't make any changes. And at the time, it seemed really odd that this woman couldn't get a sponsor outside of New York City. Well, I don't know that I just couldn't wrap my head around can't even get someone local. So, but when I was desperate and dying, my marriage had broken up. I had been fired from my administrative job, which was also my religious home at the time. So my family and me lost that. That was really horrible. And I gained, I went from like 230 to 325, we'll say 325. And, in a heartbeat. And I was just a physical wreck. I mean, I didn't literally spend a summer in bed, but I spent a lot of summer in bed. And when I wasn't in bed, I was trying to figure out how to get back there. And so I didn't know what to do but go to one of the annual events that OA had. And I walked in, and my glorified version right now is that there were angels, there were, it was this wall, there were these two women sitting across the way. They were in this big, huge circle. And I mean, it was just so obvious that they were not doing the thing that they'd been doing 6 months earlier. And neither of them, I hope they are doing exactly what they need to do, but they're not in program, and that happens. But they were in long enough to get me started. And I am so very grateful. I've not done anything else for 16 years. It's good for me, I'll tell you that much. And I can't do it alone. And I found out, the other things that I can't do alone, and I don't have to because someone has done it here, or many people have done it here. And, and I get to talk about the things that I don't think I can talk about, that I figured out that I can't do alone. I don't know that makes sense, but, I'm just who I am. I mean, this is such a weird thing to come around to, but I was thinking about this qualification this morning, and I was a fat person there are 3 million pictures of me fat, because I just wanted to be remembered. My way of neediness, of not feeling like I belonged, was to make sure that everybody knew me and everybody, thought that I was really great. And so I just had all these pictures taken of me. And it's one of the ways that I was a poser. Because I wanted people to think it was okay. I wanted them to think that, I did spend a little time in the fat acceptance world, but little time. Okay.
1 minute.
So, oh gosh, really? That's exactly how I asked the time to go. So service is where it's at. I got to do service. That's how I get to find out who my people are in Gray Sheet. Everybody's my people in Gray Sheet. And, I can talk to some people about what I'm doing with food, and I can talk to other people about how can I get this excess weight or excess fat to fit in this kind of clothing piece. Or, there's just different people for different things. Retreats are so rich and fantastic and wonderful. And if you can in any way get to one or a gazillion, I would highly recommend it. Meetings, it just doesn't get old. I go to a whole bunch of meetings. I really do work my life around my abstinence, because I get daily reminders that I'm a food addict. I still stain my clothes. The difference is I try to get the stains out. So, some days it's that's just the way it goes. Um, I've done a lot of really great things in abstinence for myself. I did a lot of that's my time. So I'm going to pass now, and thank you all. It's really, really good to be here, and I'll pass.